Hi friends, I'm Laura. This is Troy. We're headed down to Vancouver, Washington to check out a new distillery to us called Quartz Mountain. We'll give you an interview and hopefully some tasting and let you know what we think about it.
So we're here with Darin Kyle, who is owner, founder, master distiller, sales force. It's a two-man team.
Yeah, it's a two-man team. I'll back off on the owner part of it. Mom and dad are president, vice president, but we're all, collaborating together, working on this project, since 2019. And yeah, it definitely takes many hands to make this ship fly.
When we first arrived today, you were telling us you're on your 5-year anniversary month.
Next Saturday, the 27th, we're going to have our 5-year anniversary party here. So that'll be from 10 to 6. Everybody's invited. If you can get down here, come down. We'll have got a food truck coming in. I got a live band, our live musician that'll be playing. We'll open up a tasting bar and we'll be doing some samples and stuff like that, some simple cocktails. It's a lot of fun. We had our last release, I think we had probably throughout the day, I think we probably had 250 people come through here in a 6-hour period. Wow. So looking forward to that. April 4th or 5th, I think, is when we took over the building that we're currently in. And then we started distilling almost a year to the date later, which was in April of 2020. Filled our first barrels the 27th of May of 2020 and haven't stopped. So there's about 10,000 gallons of spirits that are currently aging. Everything's done grain to glass on site. So we're pretty proud to have that support, and about 98% of the grains that we use for our products are Washington State grown.
Now, is that like a Washington State mandate, or is that just a personal choice?
It would be a personal choice just because we're from Eastern Washington originally, and we're all about supporting local as much as we can. But as a craft distiller in the state of Washington, you are required to use at least 51% of the grains that you use in your master distiller Washington grown. So that takes us out of the ability to produce stuff like rum, agave spirits. Makes it even a challenge for sourcing spirits into our distillery for production. Not that we would be interested in doing that. We're all about producing our own from start to finish on it. So also allows us to stay in that Washington State support as much as we can. Try to keep that business local. So when you buy a bottle of craft distilled spirits from Washington State, there's a lot of Washington mouths that are fed from the time that seed hits the ground to the time that it goes in that bottle.
So now, has distilling always been a passion of yours, or is it something that kind of fell in your lap? Give us a little bit of your history.
A little history. So, funny enough, my dad has been involved. He's had an interest in doing stuff like this. He tried to do some wine in the basement of our house and blew a couple carboys of wine up in there, and my mom pretty much put the kibosh to that, the winemaking at an early stage. But it wasn't until they have another business and they went to a business conference that they had in Nevada. One of their colleagues that lives down there was talking about this distillery idea he was doing. There was some discussions early on and with that expectation that maybe we would go to Nevada to do this, and of course we thought maybe he would come up here and do this, and we'd partner doing that. And obviously that wasn't happening in either direction. He didn't want to come up here, we weren't going down there, and so kind of roundtable discussions between my folks and my wife and I sitting down talking about it. It's like, hey, let's just do it on our own. So it was at that point when we attended our distilling school in the fall of 2018. As those discussions were happening, there was a lot of, quote unquote tours and stuff, and going to visit different distilleries, looking to see what was involved, talking to different people, and from there, that's where we were like, okay, yeah, there's something to be had. This looks like it's it'd be fun. It's a lot of work. You don't just distill it and then poof, you got an award-winning spirit, right? But that's kind of how we kind of evolved into the stage we're at now. I mean, celebrating 5 years, 4 years of production, 5 years at the building, and creating award-winning spirits. We're getting awards from American Distilling Institute and American Craft Spirits Association. Sips Magazine just gave us a big award for actually the 5 awards they give. We got 3 of those in the bourbon category. So, and that was beating out some 10 and some 7-year-old products. So we're headed in the right directions, and I'm pretty confident and comfortable about the path that we're moving forward with.
Are you planning to focus more on like the bourbon whiskey stuff, or do you just want to keep having a range of vodka, gin, all that stuff?
I'm starting to feel like a New York watch salesman sometimes when I go in to visit bars and restaurants, because we have 32 products on our lineup. As we have now started to progress forward, are we going to start dropping lines? There may be a few of those that may not be huge movers, that may become more seasonal, where we're producing smaller batches of it just for a season and then roll it, like pumpkin pie vodka, for example. Nobody's really into pumpkin pie right now, but come this fall, it's a pretty popular flavor for us. So now that our aged spirits have started coming out, the early part of 2022, we get our first release of our private or our cask strength bourbon. Then we get our private reserve bourbon. So we get some of these out. We've got 7 aged spirits currently on the market, and then we're getting ready. Mid part of June, our first rye release will be out, and then we'll have a bottled and bond representation coming out later this year. So yes, we're looking at all these barrels, going, okay, which ones are going to produce the next ones? A lot of these are. As I look through here, a lot of them are bourbon, but a lot of these that are sitting over on the other side are all rye. So those are.
We're excited about rye.
Yeah. So this will be what we consider a low rye. Then next year we'll have our high rye coming out. That'll be an 80% rye.
Okay.
Rye mash bill. So. So we just start adding in, and some of them will probably hit the chopping block as far as not making the cut going forward. But yet we want to be able to. One advantage in a lot of the bars and restaurants that I visit, they're like, wow, you look at this, and I can hit just about any niche that they have. Some places are that flavored vodka bar. Some places I go into, they're like, don't bring anything flavored in here. I'm not going to look at it, but I'm going to look at your gin, I'm going to look at your regular vodka, I'm going to look at your bourbon and your whiskey lineup. So we can kind of tailor tie their, whatever their niche is going to be for that particular client base.
Any plans for expansion now that you guys have got your aged products are mature enough to be bottled and sold, and you mentioned you've got your barrels next door, and 10,000 gallons on site. Is it big enough to go to 20,000 gallons, or as you guys grow as a company?
Put 20,000 gallons in there, we probably wouldn't get back to the first few barrels that are in the back corner. Production and processing section here that we have in the distillery is about 3,000 square feet, and we got about 900 square foot tasting room. That unit next to us is 1,500-1,600 square feet. So we got stuff stacked in there. We can move stuff around. Plans for expansion, of course, as you grow, you're going to need to expand. We didn't think that we were going to fill this side, the processing side, up as fast as we did, and it got to the point where, trying to move stuff in, we bring a load of grain over from Eastern Washington, at 9,000 pounds, so you got 9 1,000-pound sacks of grain sitting on the floor in here. Trying to shuffle those around because you need to get something out became a little bit of an awkward dance. Mm-hmm. So. I know it took a little bit of coercion and finally making that decision to take on that other unit. But it was like after we started moving stuff over, I know Dad goes, "Wow, man, I'm sure glad we did this." Like, oh yeah, now because you start to feel you got some breathing room.
Yeah.
Because this area that we're sitting in currently would have been stacked with barrels, and we wouldn't have been able to even sit right here. So yes, as we grow, it's inevitably gonna happen, whether we stay in that particular unit that we have next door, or go to an off-site type thing. Depends on what's available and where we're at that point in time. But as far as on the production processing side, this facility right here meets the needs. The only needs that would be needed to be expanded, obviously, would be as far as the barreling and
Sure.
Eventually a remote tasting room. So something away from here that might be a little more amongst the tourist type. Just so it allows you to get more exposure.
So it seems like the whole whiskey and bourbon industry got super saturated with the NDPs, the non-distilling producers. Being all grain to glass here and not sourcing anything, is it harder for you guys to get into a place like a Total Wine, seeing all of those NDPs on the shelf and they're all coming out of like MGP or something like that? Or is it just more about building the relationships and promoting that local thing?
Yeah, that's, Total Wine, we got into Total Wine in 2020 when we released some of our first products with our vodkas. Getting them into some of those places is one thing. Sometimes that's the easy part. Then it's getting it off their shelf and onto the shelves of the back bars and the home bars, those types of things. That's where the challenge is. The Total Wines and some of those places, some of the retailers that have, if you can get the sales staff vested, it makes it a little easier, because a lot of times people coming in, they're looking for what do you recommend? Looking for recommendations. They're walking into that overwhelming experience of all that aged spirit that's sitting on their shelves and going, oh, what do I do? But being grain to glass and doing that part of it, again, those that want to support Washington State are going to be, oh, okay, I'm supporting Washington, and I'm not supporting some, that money's not going outside of the state that way. Our philosophy is try to keep as much local as we can, whether it's city, county, state, U.S. We try to source as much as we can, either U.S. produced, U.S. manufactured. But like all of our distillation equipment, that was all manufactured in Gresham, Oregon, so moved local. We hauled it on our trailers across the 205 bridge to get it here. Day one, we had the builder, the owner of the company in here, making sure all that stuff was functioning like it was supposed to. And so you just don't get that when you're buying sourced products. Mm-hmm. It's easy to produce a tote, or order a tote and have a tote or have a barrel show up, harvest it, put your label on it, and do that. And there's a lot of places, people look at a label going, wow, this company's only been open for a year. How is it that they have a 10-year-old bourbon? Well, that's how that happens. There's doing it. And the downside for us is that would have been an opportunity for us to have some income coming in during those early stages when you're bleeding money out of every orifice that you have, to help cover the costs that's involved. But we don't have that option. So kind of stick with what we have in front of us and just make the best and roll with what we've got. So it's just brand awareness and get people educated on the advantages and the disadvantages of buying local.
So you talk about brand awareness. Do you have an actual program for brand ambassadors where you're recruiting people to promote you?
The product produces a lot of ambassadors on its own. I stopped at a gas station a couple days ago just to pick up a soda, and I was getting ready to get back in the car. A guy walks by and goes, "That's damn good bourbon." I'm like, well, all right, well, evidently you've had it somewhere, So the product does itself. As far as ambassador programs or projects, stuff like that, we don't have anything set in place. Will we get to a point where we might have some of that, some of those mouthpieces and stuff out there, kind of spreading the word? Hey, as we grow, we're going to have more of that. But our objective and our goal is the minute somebody walks through that door, I'm trying to create that ambassador. I'm trying to create that experience for that individual so that when they leave, they're going, I'm coming back here, because whether it's the stories we tell, because in order to be a distiller, you have to be able to tell great stories, because if you can't tell stories, you're going to run into some problems. But because everything in here's got a story, how we got from one place to the next, or how this happened or this happened, how accidents became, wow, I'm sure that was a good thing, and so. On the ambassador side, like I said, our Founders Club is probably the one that creates ambassadors because of the fact that they're part of something.
What exactly is the Founders Club?
We offer Founder Club in two different sizes. We do it in a 10 liter and a 20 liter. We set up a date, usually on a Saturday. They come in and they are part of the mash cook. So we're doing a mash run for our production. So they're part of that. So they're up and down on the ladders. They're adding enzymes. They're transferring grain. They're doing all the stuff that we do. Getting wet, getting dusty, and then that spirit or that mash will go into ferment. And then that afternoon they'll pitch the yeast. Bring them back in a couple weeks later where they get to be part of that distillation process. We'll take some of the hearts from that run, put it in a 10-liter barrel, and it stays on site. And that person can come in and taste that spirit as it's maturing. 10-liter barrel, kind of that sweet spot's about 10, 11 months. Once it fits their palate and they're ready to harvest it, we'll help them harvest that bottle, help it proof it if they need it, bottle it, label it, and then they pay their balances due, which covers all the taxes and stuff out the door. So out the door, over that course of that year-ish, is $750. But when you put that bottle down in the middle of the table or the holidays or at a gathering and say, yeah, I got to be make this, that ambassador, they just became an ambassador and they didn't know it.
So we didn't talk about your name and logo. So where did Quartz Mountain
Quartz Mountain. So Quartz Mountain is the location. We'll reel this back or go back into history a little bit. So my mom's dad, my granddad, started elk hunting in that area, and it's located in central Washington. And when he first moved up here from California, he might have been in his 30s. Of course, Dad married Mom. Dad started elk hunting in there, with him in that area. Of course, myself and my daughters, and so there's a lot of family history in that particular area. From the top of Quartz Mountain, on a crystal clear day, you can see Mount Rainier, and it's like you can reach out and touch it. Gorgeous up there. So a lot of history, and I can guarantee you that the conversations that'll be held around the campfire this fall will be the same conversations that were held last fall and 10 falls. So there's a lot of history in there, and that's where the Quartz Mountain, of course, Quartz Mountain Distillers, they've got kind of that distiller name to it. In that particular Quartz Mountain area, there's been some wolf encounters, and so that's where the wolf came in. It looks like it's looking around a tree at you. We had our slogan is kind of like encounter your spirit, so all of our bottle ribbons and stuff over the top, it says encounter your spirit on them. And so with that wolf coming into it, it just tied great. With that encounter your spirit, it's got that spiritual nature, got the Native American, spiritualness to it, and it just looks like it's just peering into your soul. I didn't realize how much impression it had on it until my wife and I were in at a family vacation in Montana, and we went to this little bar, and we were sitting there having this guy, one of the locals was sitting there, and he goes, I happen to have a Quartz. I always wear Quartz Mountain stuff, not because I don't own much more, and it's comfortable stuff, but he looked at me and says, I've seen that wolf before. I said, you're out here in the middle of nowhere, Montana. Where have you seen that wolf? He goes, Total Wine in Spokane. I'm like, all right, I'll breathe. All right, well, it made that impression, So that's how we came about.
So there's this fun challenge that's been going around we call it Whiskey Tube. It's whiskey channels on YouTube.
Yep.
The Reddit challenge, you only need 5 bottles. So if we were to apply the Reddit challenge to your products, what would be the mixer here?
On the aged spirits, something you're gonna mix.
and if you don't want to mix any of them,
no,
you say vodka. That's fine.
No. So, yeah, as it's like you put all your blood, sweat, and tears in something. You see somebody drop a can of Coke and like.
I'm talking like an old fashioned or something.
Old fashioned. All right, now we're singing a song. So we have our maple syrup cask whiskey, which makes a great old-fashioned. Instead of using a sugar, simple syrup, I got a lot of places using a good quality maple syrup as the sweetener in it. That creates a whole different experience. A little strip of candy bacon across the top, kind of tie that in. It is not an overwhelmingly sweet, actually hardly sweet at all, maple flavor to it because it's aged in old barrel maple, so it's just subtle. Remember, no sugar.
Sure.
And so that has been performing well.
What would be your daily drinker then?
Yeah, so our cask strength bourbon, I'm not a proof junkie by any means. Our cask strength bourbon is probably one of my favorites. And again, these batches are small, so there's anywhere from 100 to 120 bottles, maybe. I think the last batch, it was 99 bottles. Depends on what the barrel, depends how much angels and the devil, from those cuts there. So, but that cask strength it's robust. It's got some flavor to it, and that one is the one that we got the SIPS award for the highest scoring bourbon in the Northwest. So,
what about the Friday night pour? That's the next category.
Friday night pour, it depends on the company you're in, right? If you have the rough and rowdy, they may not get into the top shelf stuff. It depends on who you're catering to, but our private reserve is probably is another. It's a smooth sipper. I think there's a lot more attraction to it by many different demographics, whether it be male, female, bourbon drinkers, non-bourbon drinkers. There's a lot more. It's a smoother sipper, 92 proof, so it's got a good, nice smooth sip to it. So again, if you're wanting to have a nice, easy Friday, then we go with that. If you want to have a lousy Saturday, and you're getting into that cask strength stuff too long, maybe sleeping in the next
day. we typically proof down as we go through the night.
Yeah, wean yourself off of it. Yep. Right.
What about a special occasion pour?
The two spirits that we do that we've released with our sherry finish. or our Imperial Stout finish, or Imperial Stout whiskey that we do. Both of those are, you know, those are not going to be a spirit that's around for very long, because once those barrels are gone, then, you know, it'll be a while before, same thing with the maple, it'll be a while before we'll have another release of it. So again, it all depends on the company that you keep. You
How
know.
long have you been finishing, like how long do you typically finish the whiskey in it?
Because of we've got a few barrels back here that are that had Imperial Stout beer in. We don't go too long with that because that beer can do some funky stuff with there. So those were about, I think I'd have to look, I think they're about 8 months is what those were in there. Our first release of our sherry finish, which we're currently in that batch 1 right now, was 11 months. And so the others that are sitting here have had a longer time. So we released that one in November, right? So they've had a few more months, and we're kind of, as we dwindle down on that. We do everything small batch, single barrels, right? So, you know, when we do the, whether it be private reserve or 4 grains or some of those are all going to be 25-gallon barrels or smaller. After May of this year, these 53-gallon barrels, some of these will start becoming 4 years old, and as we exhaust those 25s, then we'll start getting into those 53s. Batches will go up, but we're going to stay in single barrel releases. So from batch to batch, they're all completely different. You know, I have some people like, well, I already have that. Well, you know, you have batch 2, we're on batch 7, way different. You know, so it does entice those that have become a fan, you know, to get the multiple batches. And it's sometimes they're enough where, I mean, I've even gone in, we were doing some blind tasting with a distilling class that we host, and you know, doing a blind taster and comparing that up against some of the other stuff that is out there, and I didn't even know it was ours. Oh. And then I realized it was several batches old, and my brain is on the new one, you know, but not even be able to pick it up. Well, wow, but, you know, that's Quartz Mountain. You know, take the labels off of stuff, get into a whole different.
Yeah, we like to do a lot of blind flights. You know, it really is the great equalizer.
Yep.
You know, you got those people that are just out chasing allocation, and you know, we talked about it earlier. You put some good craft whiskey up against that allocation, and more often than not, the craft whiskey is going to win.
Yeah, there's just a personality and a characteristic that you can't duplicate, and that's in the art itself. You know, in the craft part of it. You got something that says handcrafted on the label, and they produce 10,000 gallons a month. It's not so much handcrafted anymore. You know, the passion's not there. It's more about mass production.
So which batch are you the most proud of?
All of them. You know, as we kind of go through, I mean, that first batch, I mean, there was like, I mean, cask strength. We did that first cask strength release, and we're like, well, yeah, we got our first release, you know. So we were proud of that one. You know, it's like, okay, cool. You know, and as we start coming out with these other batches and stuff, the cask strength batch 6. And that was a good one. Batch 7 is, like I said, they were real close and improved. Different barrels, right? So each barrel is going to be different. There's just a little, what one may start to lack, the other one picks up something else, you know? So there's always this, you know, to go through and go, oh yeah, I remember, you know, batch, you know, such and such that we did on this date. I remember that one the most, you know, it's, they just all have something else to bring into the table. You know, because of the fact we're small, like I said, batch 7 on cask strength bourbon right now. So that's 7 barrels we've harvested of that one. The first few we did as a 3-grain bourbon, and then we made the switch to a 4-grain bourbon in that. And I think the popularity, it's just got a different characteristic that it brings. That the 3-grain was great, but I think the 4-grain's just got a little more to it, a little more complexity to it.
So any upcoming projects or collaborations that you can talk about?
Yeah, so upcoming, as far as collaborations with outside producers, Brothers Cascadia, local brewery here. You know, we used barrels that age Imperial Stout beer in, and then we put our whiskey in that to finish. In conversations with them after doing that, kind of that collaboration and whatnot, they have some stuff that they're going to be harvesting that might be good for us to do some finishing in. So definitely going to do some barrel swapping and stuff with them and bounce those barrels back and forth for a while, because by the time they take what they're looking for out of it, we put back into it, and then vice versa. So we got that going on. We'll have our bottle and bond release coming out probably later part of this year. So that'll be our first release of that, so we can toot that horn. Rye is obviously a big project that we're waiting for label designs as we sit here. We're that close to getting that label done.
I want to thank you for your time today.
Yeah, thank you guys.
This was a lot of fun and a lot more informative than I was even expecting. This is super cool. I appreciate you allowing us to come into your business here and set this all up. Hopefully some of you out there learned a little bit today. Quartz Mountain's very small, Washington State only. But if you do live in Washington State, you can order bottles straight from their website, have them shipped to your door.
You can always go into your local retailer too if you're outside the area and request a special order. That's one way to be able to get into some of the other states.
Anything else?
Can we taste some whiskey?
Absolutely. That's the fun part. Yeah, we'll get done with this.
Yep.
We're good with this.
All right, thanks for watching, guys. Like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you soon.